Today it's going to be quick and simple. All I'm looking at is the 70-200 L series Canon and the 80-200 L 2.8. Picture me from the edit. It turns out it was a little bit more than I thought. I did these side-by-side comparisons, but if you wait till the end, there are a few extra shots of the 80-200 in action, literally in the field. So yes, take care, see you all soon. I was just curious to see how the image quality stacks up between the two. A lot of the situations where I've been using the Canon 70-200 were in interview type situations, so in those scenarios maybe the 80-200 would be sufficient. So hence I was just curious if I would dig it back out again and look at the image quality and see how it fared in static situations. Now the 70-200 2.8L has IS, and the problem with the 80-200 it has no IS, so I haven't really tested that today. These are quite simple tests and I have to hang back the 70-200, so I just really wanted to see if my 80-200 in a pinch could still hold up against it, or whether it really is worth upgrading to a full 70-200. Without further ado, a couple of very simple shots to look at. I was only really concerned about image quality, mostly sharpness, to see if the backlighting or haziness that I sometimes get with the 80-200 would be also on the 70-200. Now this is the only shot I've tested with eye autofocus, so I haven't checked yet, so I'm not sure if both will be keeping up, or whether or not it is still keeping track and how the autofocus works. Now the 80-200 is on a is not on the Canon, that is on a Sony a7S III via an adapter. So yeah, and also that adapter can flare quite harshly with a strong backlight, so again that might be a little bit of a disadvantage on this particular shot. But yeah, eye autofocus on the Canon on the R6 Mark I will obviously be fare a lot better. First of all, I'm just getting chromatic aberration out the way. These are at 400%, so if they look a bit soft, that's why. Both seem relatively well controlled. The 80-200L seems to be a fraction worse when it comes to chromatic aberration, but on the whole they seem relatively well controlled. This one's at 200%, same here as well. The sun did go down a little bit, so possibly a few less hotspots happening. Literally going to flick between the 70-200 and the 80-200 so you can see the differences. I had to come back and reshoot this one, and by the time I did it had clouded over, but hopefully you can still tell the difference. This quick side by side is just to show you an example of the hazy effect if you're in a strong backlit situation, but this can be corrected for in post to some degree. So back to looking just at sharpness, I'm flicking between the straight out of can shot and just with some base corrections on the 70-200. Back on the 80-200, just flicking between out of can shot and a few basic corrections. So here on the left is the Canon version at 70-200, on the right is the 80-200. And now the image on the right, which is the 80-200, will have some basic corrections added, just to match a little closer. Jump to f4 at 200% on flipping between the two again and side by side. So again, with the adjustments, even with the haze, you can see it really brings back some of the detail. So don't watch the color here too much, it's really just looking at the sharpness between these two. And I think the 70-200 is fractionally sharper, but again, without blowing up, I don't think you'll see too much of a difference. Here we have both cameras set to f4. And again, looking at the haze and then just slightly correcting it to bring back some of the contrast. It's at 2.8. So for each of these, just looking at the differences, I think there was a focus point on those two was slightly different. So here we are at 3.5 on each of these, flipping between out of can and a slight adjustment. I wasn't really doing scientific tests here, but I did put a color chart in just so that you can see what differences might be there. It is quite interesting to note that the sharpness on occasion was sharper on the L series 70-200. on 1 or 2 occasions, like I think this first one, but later on we'll see that the L series 80-200 was then sharp. We can see a slight backlight haze effect on both lenses here. A little bit of a flaring issue, which again may have been cleaned up on versions 2 and 3. Jump to f4 here. And I'm still flipping between some slight corrections, but also showing you the straight out of can footage. We're at about 100mm on both lenses at f4 for these last couple of shots, and just you can see we're still flipping between the out of can shots and the corrected. Going to be going to around 200%, just zooming in, and here we can see on the right the 80-200 is fractionally sharper. So on the back of these 70-200 and 80-200 tests, I decided just to take the 80-200 out with the Canon R6 and see what it would do. And I think that although it didn't have the IS that the 70-200 does, which is definitely an advantage, I thought the camera handled okay and reminded me why I like it in the first place. So before you go, there are a few extra shots of the 80-200 in action, so yeah, just stay tuned for a few more of these. Hopefully you enjoyed the extra shots. I left a few moments where I was changing zoom and or using the camera handheld so you could see a little bit of the IS in action. And again, just looking at the quality of like bokeh, the sharpness, and just in general at the 70 all the way, the 80 all the way up to the 200 in action. So leave your comments in the comment section, and if you do feel to hit a like button, please don't let that stop you. Okay, take care, see you all on the next one. Bye now.